Ronan and I'm going to say it right, Eyal, the Yaari Brothers. And they have an amazing story to tell. And you're going to go to the movie probably right away, right? Yeah, but you do a little context here. So, ladies and gentlemen, the bigger game changers, the Yaari Brothers.
Ooh, that's us. Wow. Okay. So we're going to give you a quick intro, and then we're going to show the movie, and then we'll come back up here for a Q&A. The intro is really about a year and a half ago, my brother and I, and my son, who you'll meet a little bit later, decided to ride across Israel on a bike. Okay, that's the premise. Two brothers on this bike, and you'll hear the story in the movie. But what we didn't realize was, as we were doing this, that there were another 100 riders. I should say that there were another 100 riders on this ride. It was an organized ride. And when we got there, we were so focused, after a year of training, to be able to accomplish this ride, that we were just focused on our story. We didn't think about anything bigger. But as the story unfolded, and these two brothers kind of powering each other along the plains of Israel, other riders came up to us, and some of them were very emotional. And we didn't understand, why are you all emotional? And they said, well, I have a brother also, and I haven't spoken to him in 15 years, or I have a sister, and she's going through some health issues. And before you know it, we realized we struck a deep chord, and as you'll see from the movie. And not knowing back then, we realized that we are actually playing the bigger game. We just didn't know what to call it. So when we got back home, and the reason I'm telling you all this is that we never intended to be here. We never intended to make a documentary. So all this is really an afterthought because of the impact that we had on the riders on the trip. So keep in mind as you're seeing this movie that the guy who produced it for us, a friend of ours, which is sort of a labor of love, was working with a huge disadvantage because he wasn't with us on the trip. So keep that in mind, right? He reconstructed the main theme, the main threads of the story after the fact. So keep that in mind. Anything you want to say?
And the video clips, too. We had to piece together really from volunteers on the ride that happened to have little webcam kind of things and helmet cams and, you know.
Right. So what you're seeing is sort of a homemade documentary. It's very personal. It's a very personal story. So, you know, seeing our story up there is sometimes a little scary when we sit in the audience. But it's about an hour long. Enjoy it. Eat your popcorn, and then we'll come back here for a Q&A. Okay, rolling. Give you Camelo, the camel. Couldn't have done it without her. So, as you can see, it's a very personal, emotional story. It's really kind of bearing just what happens inside of ordinary families, and I'm sure if I went around this room, there are stories just like it. We just happened to wrap a nice story around the bicycle, but the story is really of just how do you deal with issues when they come up in your life and the family dynamics that really make them happen. So also, I just want to introduce my son, Oren. Now, he's grown a little bit since you saw him in the movie. That was only a year and a half ago. I don't know what we've been feeding him. So actually, the movie, I mean, really, we hijacked Oren's bar mitzvah is really what it was. It started as a trip for his bar mitzvah, and during that time, Eyal was going through his difficulties, and I had this idea of making it a trip with Eyal, and then Oren just kind of got left a little bit behind in terms of all the fanfare, but he was absolutely amazing as a 13-year-old, pulled him out of school for 2 weeks, but forget all that. This guy never rode a real bike before, so I had to get him on a real bike, and we trained for a year, and he had to learn how to cycle correctly on the road and be able to deal with everything that comes with this kind of trip, and he was just absolutely amazing. So anyway, we'd like to open it up for any Q&As, and we can answer any questions that you might have. Yeah.
It's for Oren. And how does that feel? How does that feel for you to have been the catalyst for this? How was it to be the catalyst for this work?
Is this on? Feels really good. I don't know what else to say. The most memorable was before we got to the finish line, we went to a pit stop, and Eyal was like, we should be in the front because we're like, this is our hometown, we should go in the front. And I was like, okay. And so we went in the front, we rode, and when I saw my grandma at the end with her arms open, crying, it was like everything was complete, training, and it felt awesome.
There's so many, so many memorable moments. Is the mic on? Yeah. Okay. I'll relate one or two that just pop into my mind. One, when I wasn't feeling well one day, and I was lying down in the truck, and you have to understand that this is completely run by volunteers. This whole organization is just volunteers, and the volunteers come from Jordan. The bulk of them are Palestinians, so these are Arabs in Israel volunteering to help us, do this race. And what I thought was amazing was there was kind of sitting there wondering if I'm going to be around in the next few minutes, and the guy who was driving was from Jordan, and they speak very little English, but he turned around and was trying to speak to me, so I kind of got up. And he said, I need to tell you something. I said, okay. I didn't know what was coming. And he said, I have to tell you how much it means to me that you did this. I'm adding in the English here, but it basically was that you raised money to allow me to go to school. And that's changed my life. And he held his hand out, and he was staring right into my eyes. I remember when he was saying this, and I was just kind of like, and I shook his hand, and he took his other hand and covered my hand with both his hands, and kind of shook it and just looked at me. And it was the most sincere thank you I think I've ever gotten. I mean, it was one of those thank yous that you just know every fiber in him is just grateful. And I said, wow, that was like my first indication of what the effects of playing a bigger game can really do, because I think a lot of times you think of the bigger game, you think of yourself, right? You think of, how am I going to play this bigger game? What do I need to do to be big, to play this big game? But you forget that it's not about you, right? I mean, you're creating this game to have this effect, and you forget that until moments like this where you're reminded, wow, shit, I did something, Yeah. And that's when really hit, and I said, wow, that's amazing. This is what it's really all about, you know. That was one of the memorable moments.
Let me just add some background, because we forgot to mention. This ride is actually a massive bigger game. It's not, I think it's actually a great story, because we kind of took this ride and made it into our own little thing. But really, the ride is much bigger than us. The ride is sponsored by a group called Chazon.org, okay? They put together these bike rides. And they partner with the Arava Institute in Israel, okay? And the Arava Institute is a little tiny educational program, but it's a really a light, because what they do is it's a master's program. They take 40 students every year. They take them from Jordan, Egypt, the Arab countries, Israel, Canada, and the US. And they all together work on solving environmental issues in the Middle East. Because their tagline is that nature has no boundaries, which is right. I mean, if you have air pollution in Amman, it's going to affect you in Jerusalem. So what's brilliant about this group is that first, before they take any science courses, they have to learn how to work together. Imagine, these are Arabs coming from the West Bank, checkpoints, Israelis that have just served in the military, so there's a lot of tension. So first they have to learn how to work together. Then they learn about how to solve problems. And they are going to be the next generation of environmental leaders in the Middle East. They're already networked. So this thing is a brilliant thing. So this is my 4th ride with this organization. The money that we raise, which sometimes can be as much as $500,000, all goes to scholarships, particularly for the Arab students, because they normally wouldn't be able to afford or want to come to study in Israel, but that's enough of an incentive for them to come. So that's what the big game context of this ride was. And that's awesome.
Let me just add, I just want to add one other moment which relates to this, because it was just another one of those aha moments of, there was an evening that they organized for us where the Arabs, and there was about 15 or 20 of them, went on stage. And one by one, each one told his story of how he got there and what it took to get there and what it meant and the whole 9 yards. And one by one, they would tell the story of how difficult it was, and a lot of times they would even hide the fact that they were even going to Israel from their community, because they would just be thrown out of their community. But they were offered, this scholarship, and I think they were a bit amazed, because it's one of these, it's like a gift, really, right? I mean, you get this gift. And one of the things that struck me was I got to see the effect of what happens when you give someone something unconditionally. When you offer someone something with no strings attached, what's the reaction? How does that affect human beings? It just interested me, and what I saw was amazing. What I saw were people that were maybe a year before looking at us like the equivalent of Nazis or terrorists, the enemy, the arch enemy, are now hugging each other, declaring Israelis as their best friends, taking people to their homes, and endless stories of one after the other of just how they've bonded and have literally become best friends with some of their arch enemies. And I say to myself, I'm looking at this, and after I went through all 12 of them, and I said, look at this. We talk about peace in the Middle East, right? For 5,000 years, we're trying to figure out how to do peace in the Middle East. No one's been able to do it, right? The biggest thorn in the butt of this planet, right? And here you take people, you offer that first gesture of giving, and watch the ripple effect. And the ripple effect was, wow, this is incredible. What do I need to do? Nothing. Well, it incites you and motivates you and inspires you to pay it forward in a weird way, right? So you've got this bottled energy of generosity, and you're kind of trying to figure out what to do with it. And you could see what happened was the trust factor that was missing all of a sudden started forming. And bonds of friendship were building that governments could not do for 5,000 years. This little organization had a 100% success rate. And beyond that, every one of those people are going to tell their story to another 10 people. So you've got this exponential ripple effect of success. And I'm thinking to myself, this is it. This is the solution to peace, world peace, right? I'm saying, it's right here. This is world peace. The formula is so obvious. It's not top down. And I said, it suddenly seemed so obvious that it had to be a bottom-up thing. You can't have governments tell people that fundamentally hate each other that we're now in peace. You know, peace has been declared. What are you talking about? I'm going to kill this guy. You know. But bottom-up totally works. Bottom-up is, there's no government that could contain people saying, I want to be this person's best friend. Right?
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Mine? I think, I think it was said in the movie, I think it's right now. There we go. Thank you. I think it fits so beautifully with this expo because I started with this little project, and I never in my wildest imagination would have thought that a year after we would be standing on a stage in Lake George in front of 150 people telling the story. It just didn't even enter my mind.
It didn't even enter our... It didn't even enter our mind during the trip because I remember we would talk to each other every once in a while, and we were like completely, we're so focused on, all right, what's going on with the bike? Are you okay? How's your heart? How's your this? And meanwhile, people coming up to us going, oh, I got to tell you, this is the most incredible story, the most incredible thing I've ever seen. I'm going, what are you talking about? I go, yeah, the bike, it's pretty cool, right? It's like I didn't understand. It just seemed to evolve so naturally and just made sense that we were so involved with the story that people were just coming up and crying, and I was like, Renee, what's going on?
Yeah, we didn't get it. We didn't get what we did, and yeah.
It just said, are these people nuts? And there was a guy that I remember we took a picture and he says, is it okay if we make a poster out of you? Can we put you up in the, what was it, the post office thing or something? And one person wanted to make a documentary. All of a sudden we realized, wait, we had to step back and say, what is it, what's going on here? What is it that people are seeing that, we're not...
That we missed, yeah.
Yeah, and it was, I felt kind of stupid, but it took people explaining to us to figure out,
But what it comes back to is a common theme that I think, again, I go back to this because I think the reason it resonated with people there, or maybe here, is that every family has challenges, right? Every family has challenges. And it's just about learning about communication, learning about how to channel those challenges and overcome them and come up with something positive, right? And, one of my biggest underlying things here, which got accomplished tonight, is really giving my brother a platform beyond the bicycle. Because you can hear him, he's so articulate and intelligent and a great mind that to me was, once I realized that this thing is bigger than us, I think what I wanted to do was actually go around create something, a backdrop for us to speak from, and have my brother have a chance to relate to people that are, facing challenges, and listen and hear what's possible. So that came tonight, and that's why it's been such an awesome experience. Yeah. Okay. You want to come? Yeah. Okay. The beautiful thing about this, well, my brother is a little bit of a prima donna. You heard he went to Brandeis, $40,000 a year. He doesn't just get on any bike, okay? Well, he said, you know what, look at my seat, right? Okay. Which would you like to sit on? Okay. So I said, look, I'll do this with you, bro, but I want to recline. He thought it was Passover or something, I don't know. I want to recline on the seat. So I had to find a bicycle, that we can both be on at the same time, and one that is also reclining. And then he said, but what if I want to rest and I don't want to work that hard? Okay. Well, then we came up with another idea, which when you come in later and look at it, we each have an independent gearing system, okay? Which is kind of a beautiful thing. That means he's got this is his little speed shifter, so he has his own gears, and I have my own gears, and yet together, how metaphoric, we contribute to the same drivetrain, right? So if he wasn't feeling great, he wanted to rest, he just upshift. I just had to make sure that he wasn't, that he really wasn't feeling well. just resting there. Other than that, it's really a pretty heavy bike, and it really was harder than I thought. It was pretty demanding.
Yeah, pulling him up those hills was just like...
Thank you. Which is absolutely true, actually, absolutely true. Yeah. Yeah.
What really strikes me about the story is where it began, and what I think I saw was that as things were evolving in the family and with health and with a son going through a rite of passage and you feeling disconnected, was that you had a need to be connected to your brother.
Right, absolutely, and that's the way to connect, right? Be on the same bike.
Wow, and it was just in that human need to be connected, and everything that evolved from that created, oh my gosh, this, like if you connect the dots, it's just such a wild story where the three of you celebrated one another, but then it was bigger than you, but all these other humans were connected. And it spreads, and it brings you here. And it's just, that is magic.
The number of bigger game stories that came out of this, when I thought, like in retrospect, was just enormous, because you think, oh, okay, it's about this. No. It was about the fact that I started doing something for him. He turned around and did something for me. We turned around and did something for the Arab population. The Arab population turned around and volunteered tremendously back to us, back to the Israelis. The Israelis gave back to the Arabs. It was just watching this ripple effect, this domino that was just out of control.
So what was the common denominator? Why did it work?
This is what I think, also just spending a day or two here with this expo, I was kind of just pondering this whole question, and I think the formula in my mind is that when you take the combination of a bigger game and you combine it with a secret ingredient, which I think makes it explosive, and that is an intent, an unconditional giving intent, a one-directional, unconditional giving intent. When you combine the two of those together, it seems to be synergetic in such a way that the person on the other end receiving it, I think, is just so overwhelmed and maybe even not believing it at first, but when they absorb it and accept that this person is, with no strings attached, doing something for me and only for me, and not even to get a thank you back. No thank yous. Just doing it with that pure intention for you. When someone genuinely feels that, and I felt that because I was at the one end of this, it fills you up with this energy that you just don't know what to do with yourself. Because you feel like it needs to be paid back, right? When someone does something for you and you say thank you, the deal is done, right? He got his thank you, you got your thing. It's an even exchange, whatever it is. The energy stops. But when someone gives you something and doesn't want the thank you back, you're sitting there holding this hot potato. You kind of feel like, well, who do I thank? You know, if you don't want to thank you, where do I pay this forward to? And you just naturally become that giving person. The same way anger spreads from person to person like a hot potato, so does giving. So I think the fact that my brother's intent was so pure in that this whole project for him was about me. It was, like he said in the film, you know, what can I do to compensate for his Parkinson's? I'll use my body. I mean, that was his thinking. And at the receiving end of that, when you realize this is being done exclusively for you, no thank yous, no ego, no, you know, none of that. It's just a very directed energy, unconditional for you. As a recipient, I think it takes the bigger game and multiplies it. Almost, you know, E equals MC squared. Well, incredible explosive energy equals the bigger game times the giving. You know?
Yeah. Okay, just as far as time is concerned, a couple of more questions. Okay. Shake, rattle, and roll.
You up
Oren?
for it?
Will you do the shake, rattle, and roll?
Oh, wait,
first?
you know what? Before we do that, hang on. Hold on.
You want me to hold on to this?
There's a whole
Oh,
other
yeah.
sub-story to this. The name
Of our team. Yeah, the name of our team is called Shake, Rattle, and Roll.
Rattle and roll. Now, of course, he's the shake.
What do you mean I'm the Shake?
I'm already 55, so I'm rattling. And the roll.
That's going on Facebook. Instagram.
Do we need another one? Take two? Take two. Oh.
Wait, we got the wrong order here. No. I don't have to do anything.
Shake, rattle, and roll. Okay, one last question and we're out. Oh, you already asked the question. Anybody else? All right, go ahead. Too beautiful to say no to.
Thank you.
Look at you and
Thank you. I have a question. I grew up in the Middle East. I grew up in Kuwait
Okay.
in the 80s. And the question and the burning question of peace in the Middle East has come and gone and come and gone and come and gone. And I just wonder, do you think you might be able to do something about it? Do you think you will do something about it? Do you think there is something to do about it?
Me personally, or
You guys, with what experience you've just had in your trip?
I think we're doing it in a sense, just spreading the message that it's from, it's not from the top down. The governments can't do it. from the bottom up, small increments, small increments. So this organization, the Arva Institute, has graduated 500 graduate students, right? Each one is an ambassador, like Eyal said. They go back to Jordan, they go back to Egypt, and they start telling other people. So multiply 500, I don't know, it's impacted 10,000 people. Now, if you talk to hardened Israelis, right, they're going to say, that's cute, very cute, guys. But, you know, we have bigger issues. And I understand that. I'm pragmatic. I mean, it's a tough neighborhood. But when you witness a little ray of light like that that's actually working, it's a beautiful thing. So I don't know if it's going to create peace. I can't tell you that. But I know it's the right direction. So we're going to keep riding. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys. What a thrill to have you here. Yeah, just a moment.
You doubted me.